The greatest culmination to a superhero montage came with the release of Avengers Endgame. Besides the insurmountable pressure it had to bring together literally every Marvel hero since the start of their run, they also had to make sure that every hero was used to his or her maximum potential. This paved the way for some creative writing and some really unique fighting scenes. Finding a way to do this with most of the 36 characters was a bit of a challenge, but they managed to pull it off. Sort of. Here are some of the ways heroes in the MCU have grown to become more powerful by the time the Endgame came rolling around. For this analysis, we won't be categorizing based on abilities, but just how these abilities have changed since the character's inception. Also, we're not going to cover every hero, just the ones that had noticeably stronger powers than when we last saw them. So let's get into it. Let's start with Andrew Scott. Andrew Scott was probably supposed to be snapped away like everyone else, but since he was in the quantum realm, he was immune from the effects of everything that happens in the world where time and space become irrelevant. This allowed him to come back from the quantum realm and meet up with the Avengers, even if he was 5 years late. Now, this is not so impressive on its own, because AntMan is known to travel to the quantum realm on a regular basis, but what's fascinating is that he was the one who pitched the idea of the time heist. Now, this is a big step up from Andrew Scott in previous films. From some small-time petty criminal to a quantum physicist, Scott has really pushed the limits of his knowledge of how the quantum realm really works and how to access it with relative ease. Without Hank Pym to provide the guidance, Scott was largely on his own, but still managed to get the Avengers to exact points in time they needed to be. Without Ant-Man, the events of Endgame could not have transpired. Next on the list is Hawkeye. Clint was looking to retire from his role as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent and enjoy a life on the farm with his family, a family that was taken from him all too soon. Having the only source of comfort ripped away from him, he found catharsis in vengeance. Vengeance that he exacted upon the Yakuza for some reason. But this was not the same mercenary for hire kind of Hawkeye. This was Ronan, a masked vigilante that tracks down and slaughters criminals. Fans are introduced to a more unhinged side of Clint Barton. The mere fact that he now seeks out and kills without remorse is enough to know this is a stronger, more brutal character. Though his finesse with the bow might still be the same, and his hand-to-hand combat might not have drastically improved, there is nothing more dangerous than a man who has nothing to lose. The Hulk might seem like an odd entry on this list, but we are not defining him by his physical prowess. The fact that Bruce Banner can now use his brains and couple it with the brawn of the Hulk, in his own words, it's the best of both worlds. Now, Bruce Banner doesn't have to wait for rage or anxiety to kick in before he can summon his big green friend. He has all the same strength that you would come to expect from Hulk, but now he can use them in tandem with the mind of Dr. Bruce Banner. This was pivotal in the time heist, as Bruce could use his advanced knowledge of radioactivity and particle accelerators to help bring Scott's plan to fruition. I know there has been a lot of backlash to the Professor Hulk idea, and many would have preferred the original variation. But, in my opinion, this one just feels more fitting. It had perfectly incorporated both halves of the character into one, never leaving the audience in a lurch. Perhaps there was no one looking forward to beating Thanos other than the Scarlet Witch. Having known only a life of tragedy, losing her brother and her children, the last thing she needed was to lose Vision too. We know that Wanda is a very powerful sorceress, but never were her capabilities more prominently highlighted than in Endgame. Since this version of Wanda does not have the Darkhold, the major driving force for her powers and magic is her willingness to use it. Since the early days of Ultron, we saw that Wanda could use her spells to manipulate minds and perform limited telekinesis. But when you rip everything away from her, she will, much like Hawkeye, go rogue. She is able to turn the tide during the Battle of Wakanda and could even hold her own against Thanos. Of course, this was but a fraction of her power. Later in WandaVision and in the Multiverse of Madness, we can see that she can manipulate reality merely by thinking about it. There were a lot of Avengers in Endgame that got a major boost. The entries on this are barely scratching the surface. But in order to not make this video drag on for too long, we will look at the others in a bit more detail in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the videos, be sure to leave a like, and as always, subscribe to the channel for more content like this.